Here's a story that I wanted to talk about, which I thought was really fucked up. Let's go ahead and turn on my window for this one. Ajike AJ Owens, fatally shot after knocking on a neighbor's door. What actually happened with this story, right? But long story short, Florida, 35-year-old Ajike AJ Owens. How do you pronounce that? Ajike? I'm just going to say AJ Owens. Shot and killed in Central Florida after knocking on a neighbor's door. Owens' family says the shooter, identified by police reports only as a 58-year-old white woman, harassed the black mother and her children and called them racial slurs prior to the killing. Woman was taken into custody Tuesday night in connection with the shooting. Spokesperson said, Valerie Strong said, unclear whether the woman was formally arrested or charged. So what exactly happened here, basically, folks, is that this woman, A.J. Owens, and her kids were playing outside, and this other woman, the 58-year-old white woman, apparently had a problem with that and started calling them racial slurs and stuff. And they got into an argument, obviously. But yeah, basically A.J. Owens was out there with their kids, and earlier, apparently the shooter threw a pair of roller skates at her kids and hit them. And then, so they left. And then one of the kids had a tablet, like an iPad or something, and actually left it at the playground. And this woman took the iPad. So AJ goes over to her house to get the iPad back and knocks on her door. And then this 58-year-old woman shoots her through the door. Killed her. Sounds a little familiar, right? I mean, that just happened a couple of weeks ago. There was a story about a 16-year-old kid who went and knocked on the wrong door, and this 85-year-old guy shot him through the door, and then luckily the kid survived. In fact, we did a stream on that about 2 weeks ago. Is this a common thing in Florida? Because that actually happened. Did that happen in Florida too? Let me see. Did the Andrew Lester thing happen in Florida? Let me see. Andrew. Yeah, it was a guy named Ralph Yarl. And Yarl was 16 years old, and he knocked on the wrong door. Now, that happened in Missouri. So, I guess it wasn't in Florida. But still, that was about 2 weeks ago. 16-year-old kid, Ralph Yarl, knocks on the wrong door. 82-year-old guy named Andrew Lester just shoots him through the fucking door. He was afraid for his life or whatever. Surprise, surprise, folks. In this case and the other one, both shooters were not immediately arrested. Which is, once again, kind of goes to show that if you're a white person and you shoot a black person dead in this country, you can get away with it. So, what exactly is the story here? Because that's the thing, right? And that, like I said with that same other story too, that's what makes this so crazy, and that's what pissed people off so much about this story and the Andrew Lester story. It's because they didn't get arrested, right? The same thing happened with Trayvon Martin. If you remember Trayvon Martin, once again, I said the exact same thing with the Andrew Lester story. It applies here too. What pissed people off about Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin wasn't the fact that Zimmerman shot Martin. What pissed people off was the fact that Zimmerman did not get arrested. And the same thing happened with this woman, apparently. This 58-year-old woman shoots A.J. Owens through the door, kills her. The police come, they take her away, they bring her back, and apparently they didn't even arrest her. They asked her a bunch of questions, they let her go. And she was at home, and she got to sleep in her own bed that night. She got to wake up in the morning and have breakfast in her own kitchen, and it was like nothing ever happened. And if you think that's just how the police work, they're doing an investigation. If you think that, then please tell me if it was the other way around. If A.J. Owens shot a white woman through her door and killed her, would A.J. Owens be having breakfast in her own kitchen the next morning? No. No, she wouldn't. And if you think she would, you're lying. You're lying or you're deluded. If you think that the cops wouldn't have arrested her and she wouldn't be at least spending as much time in jail as possible before they would formally charge her, then I got a bridge to sell you. I got a bridge and a furry trout farm and a jackalope farm. And also, my friend is a Nigerian prince, and he wants your help getting some money because that's complete 100% total fucking bullshit. And you're sorely mistaken if you think that's how it works. If you think the cops are like, oh, we're investigating and we'll decide whether we're going to charge. Bullshit. Bullshit. If she was black and the victim was white, she'd be in jail. Even if they didn't charge her, she'd still be in jail. But no. How come it's when a white person kills a black person, they don't go to fucking prison? How come that shit keeps happening? It's how many examples do we need of that happening? It's happening over and over and over and over again. Here's the other thing about this, folks. So it's Florida. Florida is the stand your ground state. It's the state where stand your ground first started. Stand your ground has now been adopted by multiple other southern states. It was basically, stand your ground was put in place specifically for this reason, so that white people could kill black people and get away with it. That's the whole reason why stand your ground existed in the first place, if you didn't know. But stand your ground, along with the castle doctrine, basically says that you don't have a duty to retreat. That's what stand your ground says. Stand your ground, because what it is in other states like Colorado and California and Washington and shit like that, other states where you're not allowed to just murder people, you have a duty to retreat unless it's your house. So if you're like in your house, you don't have a duty to retreat. You can shoot someone, right? But stand your ground says you can just anywhere you want. If someone attacks you or whatever, or if there's a fight or an altercation, you're allowed to use lethal force. If you think your life is in danger, you're allowed to use lethal force. Right? You have a duty to retreat in other places. So if I'm in California, for example, and a guy starts trying to beat my ass or whatever, I'm supposed to run away. That's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to respond with proportional violence. I say that 3 times because people don't understand what proportional means. It means if someone punches you, you punch them back, that's okay. If you then run them over with your car or shoot them in the face, that's not okay. And you can't, well, it was self-defense. I thought he was going to kill me. Did he have a gun? No. You're not allowed to kill someone. If you genuinely thought... Now, here's the other difference. If you're 92 and a guy's beating your ass and you shoot him, that's different. See, it's all proportional. That's what you have a trial for. The trial would go on and the jury of your peers would decide whether or not that was justified. But it has to be justified, the violence. And the only way the violence is justified is if you have a duty to run away, you have a duty to retreat, and you try to retreat and the guy's still fucking attacking you anyway. That's how you're supposed to fucking do it. You're not supposed to just shoot them immediately. Well, the other thing, when it comes to the castle doctrine, says that, okay, if someone tries to break into your house, if they try to enter your house unlawfully, whatever. Know what that means? Guys kicking your door down. That's entering your house unlawfully. A guy is breaking in through a window, and you shoot him, and he's in the middle of breaking in through your window, right? He took a brick, smashed your window, he's picking your lock, something like that. He kicks your door down. He enters your house through a fucking unlocked door, and you try to tell him to leave, and he doesn't leave. Then you shoot him. That's allowed under the castle doctrine. Shooting someone who's on the other side of a closed and locked door through the door when they just ring your doorbell, that is not justified under the castle doctrine. That's not attempting to enter someone's house illegally. That's not the same thing. Okay? That's legally attempting to, and that's not even trying to attempt to enter someone's house. That's ringing the doorbell and then waiting for them to open the door to talk to you. No, you're not allowed to just blow someone away just because they show up at your house and ring your doorbell. Were they violent? Were they screaming and yelling? Were they kicking? Were they pounding on your door? Were they kicking the door? Are there physical marks in the door where they were trying to kick it down, where they were trying to knock it over? Were they screaming, "Come out here, I'm gonna fucking kill you," right? Or "I'm gonna knock your door down and I'm gonna fucking kill you"? Were they doing that, right? Did they have a weapon, right? Did they have a baseball bat or a hammer or a club or something? Were they banging on your door with it? Were they smashing your windows? Did the woman have a gun? Did she shoot at your house? No, that's bullshit. This is why this is murder. This is why this person is going to be, should go to jail for fucking murder. But once again, just it's another example of they didn't. They weren't even arrested. They probably will be arrested now that there's some media attention. Please remember, in the Trayvon Martin case, the only reason why Zimmerman got arrested was because of the media attention. The only reason that there was a trial at all, which they ultimately ruled in his favor, which is fucking ridiculous. I can't understand how he got away with that shit, but whatever. But the only reason that there was a trial to begin with was because of the media attention, right? The only reason that Andrew Lester got arrested for shooting Ralph Yarl through the fucking door and almost killing him was because there were protests. There was a media attention. People were protesting outside of his house saying, "Hey, this guy fucking shot this kid and you guys aren't doing anything about it. Fucking do something about it." That's what's really going on here. So is this woman going to be arrested now? Now that the story actually hit the news, maybe something might get done about it? For all the people out there who say that the police are just trying to do their jobs, blah, 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 and all this other shit, because every time a story comes up where someone criticizes the cops, you always get assholes coming out of the woodwork defending the police, right? Saying, "Oh, this is how it's supposed to work. This is the investigation. You have to trust in the system, blah, 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 blah. The cops are just trying to do their jobs. Don't yell at them. Don't give them any shit for this. You always need the cops, whatever." All the people that always out there and they defend the police, it's like, okay, yeah, that's fine. We do need police. But we want them to do their jobs better. That's the thing. That's what the whole defund the police thing is about. It's not that we don't want police. Everyone understands, everyone with a brain, rather, understands that a working society needs some form of policing. You need to have police in order to defend people in your society from criminals and, crooks and crime and drug dealers and fucking human traffickers and all that other shit, blah, 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 blah. Everybody understands that. Everybody understands that there are bad people out there. And you need police. You need some form of control, policing, some form of coercion. You need men with guns in order to stop murderers and shit like that. Everyone acknowledges that. That's not what any of this is about. What it is they want them to do their jobs better. They want there to be actual justice. And it just so happens over and over and over, every time there's a problem like this, we get example after example after example of how laws are not enforced equally. And how they just seem to be enforced depending on, to degrees, depending on how dark your skin is. And the darker your skin is, the more likely you are to go to jail. Down into the point where you can straight up murder a black person by shooting them through their fucking door and get away with it. That's what it's really about, folks. So, I don't know. I will be paying attention to this story. I want to see what happens to the shooter of AJ Owens, because it's just another example of how unequal our society actually is. If you ever get in an argument with someone over this kind of thing, if you're ever debating someone on the internet or whatever, which you should not do, but if you ever are and you're talking about systemic racism, this is a good example of it. Systemic racism definitely exists in policing, 100%. It may have been diminished or eliminated in other places, such as through home loans or that kind of thing. or when it comes to institutions like the army or whatever. Like, it may have been diminished in many places in this country, but one place where ingrained systemic institutional racism is still very much a problem is in law enforcement and policing, and here's a perfect fucking example of that. Hello folks, if you like what I do and you want to support the channel, please consider buying something from my Etsy shop, supporting me on Patreon, liking and subscribing, and checking me out across my social media links listed below. Thank you all so much, and see you next time.